good. In the context of your work, you seem to have made a transition from working for largish organizations to being on your own. So would you
Yeah,
consider yourself an entrepreneur?
absolutely. What do they say about an entrepreneur is a guy that jumps out of a plane without a parachute and builds a plane on the way down.
That
That's my
sure
company.
that
You
sure
bet your ass.
sounds
That's absolutely my company.
sure
Yeah,
sounds familiar.
and I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, everybody says, they want the safe paycheck. It's like, well, you get to go sit in the safe sexual harassment seminar for 5 hours, and I don't. Have fun. Hope you have fun with that. Hey, have fun with your trainings and your all your other nonsense that I don't have to sit in anymore. Good luck. That's not me. I'm that entrepreneur guy. I'd rather build a company than work for somebody else's company at this point. And plus, I'm kind of polarizing. I have my own opinions and stuff. I mean, I don't know. I just I like to do things my way. I've reached a certain point in my career where I sit in a performance review with somebody and they go, "Well, you think you did this?" And I'm like, "I don't need to be here. Why am I here? I'm sorry." You know, you just reach that point, I think.
Cool. We have someone on our team. So she's a young woman. She is contemplating whether or not to go to school or to go to work. Also contemplating whether or not to be an entrepreneur. So maybe the question first about school or work, at that sort of young high school, teenage kind of stage. What advice would you give to a young woman thinking about school
Yeah,
versus?
man. Well, it depends on the person. It depends on the person. Some people really like academia, and college is going to be a great way for them to kind of keep that train going and learn more stuff, and that's fine. I'll just use my son as an example. My son went to trade school. He hated school. He hated academia. He hated everything about it. And it would have been insane for us to say, well, no, you have to go to a 4-year school and grad. And he said, look, I want to work on cars. So we said, go to a 2-year trade school, learn how to work on cars, and go be happy. What else are we doing here? I mean, it's about figuring out, who you're going to be and what you're going to be. So it's a tough question to ask without knowing her. I would say if she leans towards academia, then yeah, rock and roll. Certainly that path could make a lot of sense. You learn a lot of great stuff, that makes you a more kind of well-rounded person, and I think that that's great. But there's nothing wrong with if she's got particular skills. Let's say she's a coder or something. There's plenty of people that are good at coding and good at those kind of skills, and there's plenty of success stories there too. I guess it depends on how you define success. I sort of define success on and when you find your purpose, what you're here for, what you're supposed to be doing, how to help people, and it reminds me of that. There's a Chinese proverb that says, if you want happiness for an hour, take a nap. If you want happiness for a day, go fishing. If you want happiness for a year, inherit a fortune. But if you want happiness for a lifetime, help somebody. And I think that consultants have that. We have that thing where we have to be useful, we have to be helpful, we have to scratch that itch. If we don't, then and not every corporate job that I had did I ever really feel like I was making a difference like that. So I think that's a certain persona and mindset too. So and a lot of entrepreneurs feel exactly that way. They feel like, look, I got to be doing something that kind of hits me on that Maslow's fifth level hierarchy of needs, that self-actualization piece. I've got to be able to hit there, and that's cool. So I guess that would be yeah. Hopefully, I answered the question about work or college. It would sort of depend on the person, not to be a cop out, but it could go either way depending on their. And what was the second part of the question?
Okay, so I do have a second part.
Yeah.
One of the other considerations is about working for someone first before being an entrepreneur or jumping straight into being an entrepreneur. So in your case, your career path sort of followed the former, where you had worked for some large companies and then became an entrepreneur. I do have some classmates from high school who almost immediately jumped out of high school into an entrepreneurship type of role. So what would you say there for the same person?
Yeah, for me, it worked out to work for other people and learn from other people. You know, I don't think I would be as successful in my job. I mean, who's to say, but I don't think I would, you know, there are things that you don't learn in college, right? You don't learn how to pay corporate taxes. You know, you don't learn how to deal with legal issues. You don't learn how to deal with insurance. You don't know how to deal with that. And sort of in your 20s and stuff, honestly, you don't want to deal with all that stuff. It's complicated, and it's really kind of, I don't know. I don't think I would have. I think I would have found it boring, and I probably would have messed it up, to be honest. So I think, you know, it was good for me to be in an agency environment. I got to learn from some great people. I learned how to do tech PR from David Copperthorne, who pretty much invented technology PR. You know, so I mean, it's like, you know, that's why that makes you who you are, I think, doing that. But is it wrong, you know, necessarily to go into business for yourself right out of school? Not necessarily. If you feel like you've thought it through and you've got customers, and you know, if you've really kind of thought through the models and you've thought through the non-fun parts of business, because one non-fun part about being an entrepreneur is that, you know, you are still responsible for, you know, payroll and you know, like I said, insurance and, you know, paying your taxes and sort of the non-fun parts of running any business. And if you're prepared to take that on, you know, or if you've got a partner that's more their speed, then yeah, I would say that could work too. You know, yeah, I kind of you have to give the consultant answer, because no path is right for everybody. Everybody's got to, you know, this life is about figuring out what's right for you, not figuring out what's right for me. You know, Dr. Daniel Amen, you know, is one of the leading leading neuroscience psychologists or psychiatrists in the world that studies the human brain. And he says that there are 16 different brain types. There are 16 different types of brains. So if he treated every single one, I was reading his book, which is Your Brain is Always Listening, today. And he said, if I treated every single depression patient like every other depression patient, I would never be successful, because there are different kinds of depression, you know, depending on the brain type, right? He's a brilliant guy, and that book's brilliant, by the way, too. You know, I really, like I said, I study a lot about the human brain, way more than any marketer you're going to meet. If you look at my bookshelf, I have so many books about the human mind, and I continue to be fascinated by it. It's never dull, right? Just when you think human behavior is dull, you flip on the news and you're like, I'm sorry, what? You know, what do we do today? You know, that kind of stuff.
Touche. Maybe last question along these lines.
Yeah.
Characteristics that are important to become an entrepreneur. What would you say?
Resilience, persistence, you know, resilience. You know, you've got to be real good with rejection. And what entrepreneur story have you not heard that says, I took this idea to 50 different people and 49 said no with curse words? You know what I'm saying? You got to be ready. It's like being a musician. There's a lot of rejection in music. You go into you know, you're playing in a bar for, you know, 10, maybe sometimes up to 15 people. I'm saying it could be that big. Just, and like, people come in and they hear you play, and then all of a sudden they turn around and walk right out. I mean, you got to have a thick skin, man, if you're gonna. But it could have reasons nothing to do with you. They could have just had a fight with their girlfriend. You don't know. So I'm just saying, you know, but that being able to, you know, overcome and come back from rejection, I think, is the most important characteristic in an entrepreneur. You've got to have a good, you know, a good knowledge of yourself and what your tolerance is going to be, and those kind of things. I think that's really, really important. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and they just delight in inventing stuff and creating new stuff and building the companies. They just absolutely light up and delight. Like the tip jar guy, you know, he runs karate studios all around, you know, Southern California, and just came up with the idea of a tip jar. You know, and so then I ran into him at CES, and I said, you know, we got to do something with this tip jar. It's pretty cool. And, you know, and then he became a client of mine. But he's like, yeah, I got to spend a bunch of time running my karate business, all this kind of thing. But you know, he's an inventor like that. So he comes up with stuff. Yeah. So I would just say, you know, have that imagination, have that persistence, you know, have that ability to overcome rejection without it damaging your self-esteem. I think that's critically important. And then obviously, that idea that you want to make a difference and sort of help the world. Almost every great entrepreneur that I know of, they see something wrong with the world and they want to fix it. And I think the great entrepreneurs do fix it.
Okay, those are all really good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.